because our mission is to promote a sustainable habitat development to enhance the quality of life, and that is the contribution that we look at to the nation. And as you will see through the presentation, that not only do we have a physical presence in every part of the country, the map is representative of our operations, which is available from the east to the west and north to the south, all corners of the country. These are our objectives, the key objectives being providing long-term finance to housing and urban development programs, setting up of satellite towns, industrial enterprises for building material, and several others. And in keeping with the objectives, these are the major activities, which is financing housing, urban development through infrastructure projects. We also offer consultancy services, and a lot of focus, obviously being from the urban development and housing sector, is on building technology, both promoting new materials as well as encouraging building material industries, and training and capacity building. These are the implementing agencies, primarily state governments, the parastatals, the urban local bodies, and also the community sector, corporates, private sector, and of course down to the last individual through our retail finance wing, the Hatko Nivas, the individual loan. Very brief view of the kind of work that we've done in our 45 years. Cumulatively, we've sanctioned almost 17,000 projects, which includes housing and infrastructure. And we are very proud to say that today, almost every 16th house in the nation is supported in some way or the other through HUDCO. And our presence in our operations is not just urban, but also rural. And we also look at housing. Apart from housing, we also look at the extended infrastructure. When we talk of habitat, we're talking of basic infrastructure and all the supporting infrastructure that goes into making a house livable. And therefore, our operations extend to over 18,000 towns and thousands of villages. The key thinking, the principle which guides us really is of profitability with social justice. Like I mentioned, we are a profit-making PSU, but our aim is always to reach the unreached, the underprivileged, and the economically weaker section. And therefore, even though we are a financing organization, a profit-making financing organization, we have a very special focus on lending to the weaker section. This gives you some idea of the social orientation of our operations, because in our operations, there is a significant quantum of allocation for the funding of the weaker section, economically weaker section, and the low-income groups. And this means even lending at a lower rate, lower than our own cost of borrowing. We extend unit cost at a higher higher level of lending, and even for a relatively longer repayment period instead of the usual 15 years, up to 20-25 years. We have recently also revised the income and cost and loan ceilings for various income groups. And for the lower income groups and economically weaker sections, we have even waived off the application fee and front-end fee. And therefore, if you see, out of the total number of units to whom we have extended support, almost 95% is actually the economically weaker section and the lower income groups. Now, we realize that a house is not just four walls, but also a place where you live, where you work, where you build up your identity as an individual. And therefore, we realize that at the lower end, a house is not just shelter, but also your source of livelihood. And like I mentioned, we have consultancy, we have design consultancies where we worked with developing small units which are meaningful, not just as shelter, but also as workplaces. And this has resulted in work shared come shelter housing. The sample that you see here is of the weaver scheme that was carried out in Kanchipuram. We've had several such schemes for BD workers, fishermen, artisans, etc. This has been particularly well appreciated. Another very important, and we're very proud of our role in disaster rehabilitation efforts all over the country. HUDCO has been in the forefront always, not just for lending for rehabilitation and reconstruction, but also giving technical advice for disaster preparedness, for mitigation measures, and also through our CSR activities, rehabilitation efforts have for housing and infrastructure development all over the country. We have been very, very active. Having said that, it's not as if we don't work for the middle income and higher income. Apart from the affordable housing projects, I'm sorry, the photograph seems to have disappeared. We also have very landmark projects which you can see in various parts of the country. For those of you familiar with the Bangalore projects here, the Brigade Millennium, these are with the private sector. We have high income as well as middle income housing that we have supported. This is another landmark project. The other very important arm, which in fact almost also cross-subsidizes our housing as wing of the operations, is the integrated development of human settlements through the infrastructure development. And for this, I would just like to take you through a pictorial journey to show you the entire spectrum of infrastructure services that we are supporting, whether it's basic infrastructure, core infrastructure, the emerging sector in terms of telecom, power. We have supported extensively all over the country. There are water supply projects, roads, bridges, airports, bus terminals, like I said, power sector. This is a games village. The film city, we've supported IT parks, SEZs, education, health, the entire gamut. We are also very happy to inform that, like the earlier speakers have spoken about the need to change with the changing market situation, we have also realized that we need to innovate, we need to encourage more innovative projects, we need to encourage innovative ways of financing, and therefore we are very proud partners of innovative projects like the Bangalore Metro, the Naya Raipur City development, which is an exemplary case of city design and town planning, land pooling, several such initiatives. This is, of course, the Sabarmati Riverfront development, which is not just about recreational facilities, but it is also about bringing a river back to the citizens and restoring the environmental conditions. We also extend consultancy services, both in terms of architectural design, landscape design, regional and town planning, project management consultancies. These are some of the pictures of consultancies that we've extended across the country, tourism development, various consultancies. The other very important aspect, which is important for us for building a foundation for a stronger India, really is our efforts for advocacy for appropriate and cost-effective building technologies. Because we're in the housing and urban development sector, we realize the importance of ensuring that the choice of building materials is not only appropriate, but cost-effective and suited to the climate. And towards this, we have also capacity building initiatives that is taken up by our research and training wing. And the same is carried further through our CSR initiatives as well. This is just to show you how the increasing cost of construction affects the affordability of the housing sector. And as we move from the rural to the urban, how the cost changes, the choice of materials changes, and the approach to construction also changes. And therefore, HUDCO emphasizes the use of building materials which are environment-friendly, ecologically appropriate, energy efficient, aesthetically pleasing, and affordable, economically affordable. Like I mentioned, the Human Settlement Management Institute is the research and training wing, which is extending support to not only our borrowing agencies, but the urban sector professionals for capacity building, for updating their information, and as a platform of information exchange and deliberation, and research and documentation. The HUDCO CSR initiatives are a very, very important aspect of the indirect efforts for economic development, because our objective through our CSR initiatives is to ensure the upliftment of the marginalized and the underprivileged. And being from the urban development and construction sector, we realize the importance of imparting skill development for not only improving the sector, but also as a source of livelihood generation and skill development, which is also being pushed aggressively now by our Prime Minister, to make sure that there is livelihood, there is employment generation, and therefore economic growth. This is one such example of our collaboration with CIDC for ensuring skill development. Similarly, through the government of Kerala, the Kudumbashree, where training has been imparted to women from the slums. And this has actually led to the training of unskilled and semi-skilled women masons and ITI engineers. And we are very happy to tell you that the tribal department has actually now started awarding construction contracts to this team of trained women. Another thing is, yeah, I'll just find out. Also for skill development for restoration of heritage monuments, and we have many, many such initiatives. Coming to the challenges and opportunities, it's interesting that in our sector, the challenges are also the opportunities. They're two sides of the same coin. Like already mentioned by the JS Housing, rapid urbanization is taking place. Cities are often referred to as the engines of growth. And cities are actually contributing to more than 60% of our GDP. Having said that, cities are also, therefore, leading to major migration, unplanned developments, proliferation of slums, and poverty. In the same context, the housing shortage, which at 2012 stood at 18.78 million, means that it is also an opportunity for us to build, generate employment, provide shelter, and an improved status of life. The construction sector, of course, is the largest employment generator and contributes to the GDP. And in this context, the government has now announced a whole lot of new government schemes with the housing mission, the livelihoods mission, the smart cities mission, several of these. And these are actually very important to HUDCO because we see these as opportunities for us to continue our contribution and our partnership in the contributing to the nation's economic growth, because each of this is actually for urban development, for better infrastructure, for better housing, and for better quality of life. And therefore, I'd like to conclude by sharing the recent initiatives that HUDCO has taken, where Sir has already mentioned that we will be a nodal agency for the housing mission. But HUDCO at its own end is also looking at equity participation, has contributed to the Seva Agrarian, which is a microfinancing institution that is being set up. This is for helping the women in the slums to be able to own houses. We are contributing, we are equity holders with the DMIC, which is again for urban development and growth. We've contributed, participated in the Venture Capital Fund and in the Infrastructure Debt Fund. And to encourage innovation in the sector, HUDCO also gives out design awards and best practice awards to the urban local bodies. So ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to submit to the gathering that we have been working for 45 years in this sector with our mission statement that we want to enhance the quality of life, and HUDCO will continue its role as an able and effective partner to achieve sustainable habitat development. Thank you.